Welcome to the Dead Pixel Society podcast, the photo imaging industry's leading news source. Here's your host, Gary Peugeot.
The Dead Pixel Society podcast is brought to you by Media Clip, Photo Finale, and Advertech Printing. Hello again and welcome to the Dead Pixel Society podcast. I'm your host, Gary Peugeot, and today we're talking with Jefferson Graham, longtime technology columnist. Hello, Jeff. How are you today?
Hi, Gary.
So, Jeff, you and I have known each other for probably 15, almost 20 years, probably, since you were attending the PMA shows as the tech columnist from USA Today, and I was the lowly media contact you had at the time. So, talk to me a little bit about how you started at USA Today.
And a great time that was.
It was a great time. But first, let's talk about your origins at USA Today. You were there for over 3 decades. And how did you get into tech?
Well, I was covering entertainment. I was covering TV primarily, the business of television, and some of the stars and actors and writers. And it got monotonous, and I kept asking for a switch, and they said, no, you can't switch. You're too important to be in TV. We need you there. And then this job came open for a tech reporter, and I said, let me try out for it. You have nothing to lose. Let me at least write some articles for you and see how it goes. And I did that. And I knew from the first article, I wish I could tell you what it was about, but I don't remember. But I knew then that that's what I wanted to do. And I just sort of slipped into that job, and over the years became the tech guru. So that was fun.
So that was about what time period?
2000. That was AOL, Yahoo, MSN.
All that fun stuff.
They were the big guys.
Yeah, and you were kind of Ed Begg's taller partner in crime. I'd always see you at CES and places like that.
Yes, I would try to bend down when we did our videos, so it wasn't as bad.
So you and I, like I said, first met at PMA shows. So it sort of was my job to kind of assist you and other press who were there.
Orlando. It was Orlando and the 20D. That was, I remember, it was Orlando, and Canon had just come out with the 20D.
Awesome.
And they're now up to the 90.
What were you seeing in photography then that was appealing to the USA Today audience, which is a mainstream audience,
Well, first of all, I was there because I'm a photographer and I was interested. So, we follow our passions. And I was very interested in doing articles about, the whole shift from analog to digital, which is what was going on. At the time that we met, cardboard cameras were still 100 million a year.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, the Rebel was the first digital SLR for under $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
And it was just starting. So the digital shift was just starting. And, I know that when I tried the 20D, that was it. I was not shooting film again. That was over.
Right.
Yep. And, I'm also a professional photographer, and I was shooting parties. I went to a party with 10 rolls of film. The 10 rolls were shot within 15 to 20 minutes, and I didn't know what to do. Right. And then I show up with the 20D, and it's just endless. So that was it.
That's one of the things I've encountered during the podcast is talking to people who were in the industry during that analog to digital transition. It was really a strange time because you had people who were trying to keep the analog process in place, right? In terms of you have a media of some sort, you have a lens of some sort, you have an imaging sensor of some sort, and you're trying to keep kind of the film workflow going.
Yeah. Well, I don't miss it. I really don't. I mean, there are the purists that say, "Oh, the film looks so much better. It's so much better than digital." I disagree. I could show you some of my old film shots. They are so grainy. They're unbelievable how grainy they were. I didn't realize how bad at the time. Mm-hmm. And what we're shooting now is just so clear and sharp and amazing. And whether I shoot on a Sony, I use the A7 III. I could not be happier with the results that I have. And then we can get into the iPhone, which is pretty amazing too, but that's all computerized photos. Those are not the real thing, as you know. So most people don't realize that.
What do you think of the hipster film trend that is going on? There's still people processing a lot of film these days.
I understand. I just don't, I'm not one of them. And I understand the fun of instant photos and having stuff to stick up, and too many people don't get prints, and too many people show off their work by showing off their phones. And that's a shame. People should get more prints made. I don't know what can be done about that. Somebody's not doing an effective job, I think, on selling prints and making people realize how badly they need them. They went to books thinking that would be solve the problem, but books are so hard to make. They're still really hard to make. They take a long time. And the automatic software always gets things wrong, and they always put in things that you don't want, and then you end up spending 2 or 3 hours on it. So I don't know what the solution is on the prints, but I would love to see more people hanging prints up.
Yeah, and that part of the market is growing in part because the variety of things you can print on has grown. It's not just flat media. There's, canvas, metal, wood, and you're right. I think the industry could do a better job of making people aware just how easy to do and actually quite affordable that stuff is. I mean, canvas prices alone have dropped drastically over the last few years. But there isn't a Kodak or a Fuji to do the major advertising. Probably the biggest industry advertiser right now in media is Shutterfly.
Yeah, and they're the worst offenders when it comes to getting books made, because they are really tough. They do great work, but the process of making it is so onerous. I wouldn't go near it.
So who's your favorite then? Who do you like to? I mean, you might as well throw a.
Well, we were talking about canvas prints. It's really funny. I got some prints made at the end of the year, canvas on demand. So you go on the site and it's $250. Okay. Yeah. But try this, put in this code. And the next thing you know, it's 100. Then it's, oh no, put in this other code. Now it's 50. Then you put in another code. I think I swear I must have paid $25 for a 24 by 30. I mean, it's just
nuts. You keep that up long enough, they'll pay you to take.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah,
Who do you like for books?
Books, I think Blurb does the best work, but again, it just takes too long. And I'm a purist. I want one photo on a white piece of paper, every page. That's what I want, and they don't want to let you do that. They'll eventually let you do that, but they want you to put 1 here and then 3 and then 4 and then 5 and flowers in the background. I don't want any of that. One picture per page. If they would just make it really drop dead simple, they'd get a lot more sales, I think.
Well, there's a lot of work being done in that field. I mean, there's a lot of AI being applied. Google is trying some of that, but I don't think they're really doing a good job of selling it. That's the thing. I think it needs to be sold, and there's really no one driving it, right?
Right. And if Google's doing anything, it's just one thing that they're doing until tomorrow, and then they change their mind and they go on to something else.
Yeah, I mean, just recently they changed their policy on Google Photos, which I think you covered that actually before you left.
I believe I called them the turkey of the year for that. Okay, so they said, despite 5 years of unlimited free photos, beginning in June, you'll have to pay.
Right.
And it's a shame because so it's fine. We give you 15 gigs for free, 15 gigs, which includes your Gmail and your Google Drive.
Right.
And I have 40 gigs of unread emails in my Gmail.
Right.
In a normal week, I'll shoot 20 to 30 gigs of photos. So I mean, like 15 gigs is nothing. And okay, you got to pay for space. I just don't like the bait and switch. But I'm not going to be able to give up Google Photos. And it's not just the free storage, it's the search. Every time I'm looking a Lighthouse or Candy Stripe or anything, I just go to Google Photos first because their search is so much better. Right. I have all my photos on SmugMug, but every photo is not labeled. If I do a shoot, it was like Manhattan Beach Pier or something, it'd say Manhattan Beach Pier, but it's not going to say sunset. And I can't type sunset into SmugMug and have the picture come up unless I tag every one, and I'm not going to do it. But on Google, I can say Manhattan Beach sunset, even though the file was called Manhattan Beach Pier.
What's interesting is that is something that Google is really, really good at. Like yourself, I've got everything in Google Photos. I really use it for that purpose, sort of I need to find that picture of my kids when my son was in Boy Scouts, and you can almost put in Boy Scout and I'll come up all those pictures. It's really impressive, but it's really not my go-to for like actually organizing my memories per se. I use, other services for that, but they do a really good job with that. And I on the podcast, I talked to the CEO of a company called Mileo, which you probably are familiar with. And, he talked about that their AI is really good. They really can't compete on that, but they hope to compete other ways.
Okay, well, I've been using Amazon Photos as a stopgap, which is free for Prime members, but their search does not come close. And
don't they have a limit on size?
No, it's unlimited for photos. For video, they're tough on.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. I must have been in videos. You were Canon then for a while, and you made the switch to Sony. What was the thought process there?
Video. Okay. So I could focus on the Sony camera on video by putting the camera to my eye. On the Canon, you focus on the LCD. Now that may have changed, but when I made the change, I could use the viewfinder, and that was big for me. That's one, and then two, I could shoot on silent mode. So I do events, weddings, bar mitzvahs, stuff like that. I can shoot a ceremony silently. And then now I have the luxury of being able to walk around the room and not make anybody mad at me because I'm not making any noise.
I usually hear a lot of discussion among the camera crowd is, there's so much allegiance to certain platforms. Like I'm a Canon guy, I'm a Nikon guy, I'm a Sony guy. And it's almost always down to quality of image, or this glass is better than that glass. And I don't see that.
When I switched from the 7200 millimeter Canon to the 7200 millimeter Sony, 25% sharper.
Okay.
Now it may be different now. I did the switch 3 years ago.
Now, in your role as a USA Today journalist, you got to play with a lot of equipment, though, right?
I did. My go-to camera is the Sony RX10 IV, the perfect journalism / travel camera. It has a built-in 24 to 600 millimeter lens. It has a 1-inch chip. It was the most versatile camera that and it's tight, small, and I shot all my photowalks videos episodes, which were on YouTube and is now moving to video on demand on Comcast and Cox and Google Play and some other places. But I shot all of them on the RX10 because I could go out with that one camera on the Oregon coast and I didn't need anything else.
Now, does that have an audio in?
Yes.
Okay, because that's where I've been talking to people who are trying to get into vlogging, and being an industry person, they always ask, well, what should I buy? And I'm always like, all the cameras are great. Just put your hands on and make sure you like it. And if you're going to do video, make sure you have audio in.
Yeah, that's changed. It used to be that you couldn't get audio in, and now they all have audio in pretty much. Yeah. Even a GoPro has audio in.
The camera market is really interesting right now because it seems to me like most of the camera makers have abandoned the entry-level market completely. I mean, yes, there's a Rebel here and a Nikon, whatever there, but it's certainly not a lot. It used to be that features would come at the high end and kind of trickle down to the low end.
Yeah, we don't even know if they make a point and shoot anymore, right?
Yeah, that's even, point and shoot's a whole nother issue, right? I'm talking about, interchangeable lens cameras, whether it's mirrorless or DSLRs. What do you see happening in terms of getting that market going? I mean, right now they're saying that probably less than 10 million units were sold worldwide out of the CIPA data last year, which is basically, a new low, if you will.
I don't know. For the past few years, it seems like Sony has been aggressive in new cameras and the other guys have not. And new markets, and I don't have any of the model numbers, but like Sony has some ones that are like aimed right at vloggers, which is a good thing. but too expensive. I think there's like one of the recent ones was like $700, and
Yeah.
the whole benefit of it is that it has a flip screen, so you can see yourself when you're recording, which is
Right.
really nice to have. And why didn't they have it before? What are they?
Right.
How hard can it be to have a flip screen? It really helps. So I give them props for that. Canon came out with the M series mirrorless, small little that could be aimed at vloggers with terrible lenses. I mean, really bad, and you can't use your previous lenses, so you have to buy these lenses that have a 5.6 opening. Really, and then when you zoom in, it goes down to f8. There's I could not find like a pancake lens that's like an f2, like just a fixed focal length.
Right.
I don't understand that. I mean, otherwise it's a very nice camera, very small, very compact. I think it would appeal to people. But gosh, the smartphones have just gotten so good that it's gotten tough. It's gotten tough.
It is tough. It is tough. I mean, especially if you are going to be doing things like vlogging or things like that. I mean, I just got the iPhone Pro
12 Pro
12 Pro, and it's amazing.
It's amazing, but you can't really zoom in. You can zoom in a little bit. You can't shoot sports. You can't shoot at nighttime. You can't connect it to a flash unit. You can't use lighting. Even when I use a softbox, which I'm not, well, we're on audio, but even when I do a softbox, there's something about the marriage of the softbox and the iPhone sensor that doesn't really gel.
Yeah, and people have tried a lot of those kind of light modifier accessories, and I don't see a lot of huge adoption of those, especially among pros. I mean, yes, they call it pro, but I'm just saying for the average person.
For the average person, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So
one of the things that you brought up earlier, I thought was interesting. I have found that, in my opinion, that the camera makers their pricing is crazy for what they're offering in terms of it's way too expensive. If you're trying to build the market and appeal to more people, like you said, coming out with a body that, when Nikon came out with their new entry-level mirrorless camera, I think it was $1,200 for an entry-level body. And I'm doing air quotes for those who can't see. And I'm thinking, that's not entry level. That's ridiculous. And I don't know where they can.
Or Sony came out with the world's greatest smartphone with the most advanced camera of all time, and it's only $2,500 for a smartphone. Are you out of your mind?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that the one with the HDMI out?
Yeah, you're paying for an HDMI out. You're paying $1,500 for an HDMI out.
Because and that's the thing where, I mean, one of the things I always appreciated about your work at USA Today is you really had the mainstream person in mind, right? You always had the average person. What are they likely going to be interested in?
Right.
And I think price is a big factor on that.
Yeah, the camera manufacturers are charging too much money. Now, granted, I understand they're making less and maybe they're losing, but they're not going to make it up by selling. How much is the EOS R? Is like $2,000 and $2,500, and make a $500 camera that people can afford, and that it gives them an advantage to not shooting on a smartphone. Make it easier to walk around. And then the other thing that's never been accomplished is clicking a button on your camera and uploading it to Facebook.
Right.
It's too complicated.
Well, and that's one of the things I always thought was crazy. And I wrote a blog post about this last year. I'll probably write one soon on the same topic, kind of like everything the camera makers do wrong. And one of them is if my Apple Watch can have a SIM card in it and a cellular connection, why can't my camera? Right? Yeah. Why can't my camera directly connect to a cell network and talk to the internet and post directly? Why not?
I know. It's too logical.
And so I don't know what the drawback would be, other than
I would only assume the menu system would still be crazy. The 25 pages of menus, and then you'd have to put one in. Some smart person would say, let's do a one button upload.
Well, now you've hit on the other standpoint is, most of these cameras are, designed, by the Japanese, and they're not the greatest at UI. Let's put it that way.
Right. If you've ever want to have some fun, go to Tokyo and go to the world's largest camera store. I've been there. It's 8 stories high, and it's floor after floor of amazing stuff. They even sell fax machines there.
It's Yodobashi camera.
Yeah, that's it.
So, but the other thing we've seen though that's been a change is really an increase, I think, in interest in photography. It's growing, it's expanding. People are more into photography than ever now, whether or not it's, you know, quote unquote real photography in the sense, you know, there's a lot of folks that I talk to who mentioned, like you said, you know, it's not a photo till it's printed or that kind of thing, but it's still one of those things where people are definitely looking to communicate with pictures. And the other reason why I want to talk to you was talking to you about your photo walks, because this is sort of your new venture, your post USA Today world. And I've never understood photo walks. So explain to me what a photo walk is.
It's a travel photography series. We go to great places and I take you on a little journey with me. And as we're on the journey, we're seeing the world through camera eyes and taking photos of the great spots, whether that be in Portugal, Hawaii, LA, whatever.
But is it like a travel package with some instruction thrown in? Or
no, it's a video. It's a video to watch. It's a travel series.
Okay.
Imagine you're watching Rick Steves go to Italy, but he's showing you the top photo spots. How's that?
Okay. So that's your version of photo walk. There are other people who do it as an instructional thing.
Yeah, I will show. I do offer photo tips in the videos, and then a suggested tour.
So when you mentioned earlier some of the places that will be, can you tell me a little bit about where people can learn more about that?
Go to my website, jeffersongraham.net, and I'll have all the info there.
And when is this launching?
February 19th.
Nice.
And I'm also launching a new website called thebestphotowalk.com, which is not just my ideas about California, but nationally, 50 states, best photo spots from Milwaukee to Monterey, from Jackson to, give me another J. What's another J?
Juneau.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. And
both
I'm
very cold places this week.
And interviewing pro photographers for local pro photographers for their tips as well.
So you seem to be very energized by photography. I mean, when I look at your posts, the bridge, the local dock, I should say,
the pier,
the pier, I should say, is your favorite place. Did you ever get tired of photographing the pier?
All the time. I made a vow that I would not take one more picture of the pier in the month of February. That unfortunately lasted 7 days, when I got a text early Sunday morning from a woman who runs a local news site, and she said they've changed the colors and now it's all red for Valentine's Day. Okay. Can you get a shot of it by 6:25? And it was now 6:05 when I was reading it. That's in the morning. And so I dashed down and I had to get a shot because the light went out at 6:25.
So you're really tuned in on when the optimal light is.
No, they have lights and they turned off. I mean, they
Oh, I see. There's lights on the bridge.
Yeah, the pier. And then for President's Day, they went red, white, and blue. And so I had to go down and do that too. And now I'm done. I'm done until until St. Patrick's Day, when they go green. Yeah. But yeah, I'm tired of shooting the pier. But speaking as a pro photographer, every print I've sold has been of the pier, and I've sold a bunch of them. Yeah.
I was going to say, I mean, as you talk to pros around the country for your photo walk
website
project and offering, I imagine they'll probably tell you the same thing, whether it's a covered bridge somewhere or the Mackinac Bridge here in Michigan. How many times can you redo that? But
yes,
there's some things that they're classic.
The other thing is this time of year, the best sunsets are November, December, and January. So they got a lot of ink during that time. And social media, I could put the most amazing picture of a tomato up, of a flower, nobody would care. And then you show the pier, the ocean waves, anything oceany, and they go nuts. Yeah. They go nuts.
Yeah. That's funny you should say that because, here in Michigan, we've got a lot of shoreline, right? I mean, the largest freshwater shoreline on the planet actually is Michigan. So there's no shortage of shoreline pictures, especially this time of the year with frozen lighthouses and things like that. So like you said, and those are the ones that get all the looks. It's amazing.
Now I should also say that I'm lucky enough to live a mile from the beach. And so I wake up every morning, the gyms are closed. I take a 2-hour walk. And
that is such a hardship. Yeah. I'm so sorry.
And I have a phone in my pocket, so I take a picture. If I see something, I take a picture, right?
There you go. So you also have a newsletter you launched. Can you tell me a little bit about that and how people can subscribe to that?
The newsletter, jeffersongraham.substack.com. I write about things that I'm interested in. How's that? Mm-hmm. Nobody's paying me to do it. And if you'd like to read it, I'd love for you to read it as well. For several years, I did a newsletter at USA Today every Saturday where I would take one story of the week and then I would sort of bring it to life and then bring people up to date on what else happened that week. I'm keeping that going on my newsletter. So I do a tech edition every Saturday. I've been doing some obits lately. Chick Corea died. Larry King died. I happened to spend some time with both of them. So I did remembrances. And I write about music sometimes. But yeah, it's generally whatever. If something's really interesting, or something really interests me, I will write about it. But generally, it's every Saturday.
Because that's one of the things that, if you've been watching your posts in various media, you are, quite the guitarist, quite the musician.
Oh, thank you. So I usually do one new song a week, and then the newsletter lets me post it there, and I usually post them on Facebook and Twitter. This week I did, there was a holiday on Sunday, and so I did my Funny Valentine.
There you go.
Yeah, I had never recorded it before, so I did that, and then one of the interviews I did for the new website, thebestphotowalk.com, I did with Scott Kelby, and we were talking about photographing New York. And that just put me in a New York state of mind. So I started working on that song and I recorded that one too. I don't know what song's next. Something from Gershwin, I think. I've been playing some Gershwin songs.
So talk to me a little bit about kind of the photo community, because you mentioned Scott Kelby. And I think one of the things that's kind of kept me engaged in this industry is, kind of the people. Who are some of your favorite photo people?
Well, I like Scott, and Scott Bourne is another one of my favorites. Do you know Scott? He's an amazing bird photographer and just a really wonderful friend who I befriended on Twitter. And I'm really enamored of his work. Rick Salmon, who you probably also know, is also a great photographer and big fan. And then I met a bunch of interesting photographers for the Photowalk series. A woman in Morro Bay, California named Ginger D'Annunzio is a local photographer who does school portraits, and we went around together photographing Morro Bay, which is great. And then further up the coast in Oregon, a photographer named Susan Dimmick, who lives in Bandon, which is one of the great finds of the Oregon coast. You've never heard of it, but
no, I'm not. I think I may have heard her name. That's why I was making that face.
Okay, and she does amazing work of the local. The rocks and some of the things that are in the water that are just out of this world. So I did a photo walk with her of Bandon and with Ginger, who also goes by the name of Charlotte. Her name is Charlotte Ginger D'Annunzio. So I have to remember that one. So those are some of, and then Jan Schreiber is a photographer in Laguna Beach who loves to go on bike rides and do videos about her bike riding, but does amazing work of Laguna Beach. And so she's also, I did an interview with her recently on the site.
Great. So once again, as we close, can you throw out a few of the places people can learn more about what you're working on?
Okay, jeffersongraham.net. It's probably the best place to go. It's my website. It's got links to everything. And the newsletter is jeffersongraham.substack.com. And I have a blog at blog.jeffersongraham.com. The Photowalk series is returning. I'll have all the tune-in information on my website.
And then thebestphotowalk.com
is a new website that will be up shortly. And then look for me on Facebook and Twitter, and you'll never know when I'll be playing the guitar because it's at least once a week.
There you go. Well, thank you, Jeff, for your time, and much success to you and your future ventures.
All right. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you for listening to the Dead Pixel Society podcast. Read more great stories and sign up for the newsletter at www.thedeadpixelssociety.com.